fallen head over heels for a TV show, only for it to vanish into thin air, leaving you staring at a frustrating cliffhanger.
Well, from quirky comedies to mind-bending sci-fi, some of the best shows ever made were cruelly cut down in their prime.
How dare they?
Joining us to talk about these brilliant series cancelled far too soon is Thomas Mitchell from the Sydney Morning Herald. Good morning,
Morning,
Thomas.
guys.
All right, let's start with a classic example of gone too soon.
Yes.
Firefly. What happened there?
God, people are still mourning Firefly, and this was cancelled back in 2003, so it's been a long time. The hurt cut's pretty deep. This was just a classic case of just like Fox, the network airing the show, just didn't understand what it was. You know, it was a sci-fi show. It was kind of, very much ahead of its time, but they marketed it as a comedy. They kind of put it on this weird Friday night slot that really wasn't right. And it's, again, this is like in the pre-streaming era, so when you were on TV, it was really important. And it only got 14 episodes that went to air, and yet here we are still talking about it. It had such an intensely kind of loyal legion of fans. They tried desperately to get a kind of movement to bring the show back, but unfortunately, it didn't work. But then it's crazy, like, it has so popular that, like, different NASA astronauts have taken copies of the DVD to the International Space Station and left it there for other astronauts, so you can still watch it if you're in space.
Wow.
That's
astronauts
true staying power. Yeah.
Amazing. So in a very different genre, Freaks and Geeks launched a generation of comedy stars. So what happened to that show?
Yeah, this was like an ultimate talent pool, like, Seth Rogen, Jason Segel. This was, again, like, it was almost before its time. Like, we talk about shows like Euphoria, which showed the really real, authentic teenage high school experience. That was what Freaks and Geeks was doing back in, 1999, 2000. But this was a time when, they really wanted shows like The OC, the kind of polished teenage experience, and this was a bit too real. And again, I think it got 15 episodes, went to air over the 18 episodes that were shot, and unfortunately it just got canned. But then it went on to become this, like, absolute cult classic, and so much talent was featured on the show, and people still rewatch it. It's got huge streaming numbers now. But yeah, sadly for Freaks and Geeks, it didn't kind of cut through at the time.
Ooh. Bring it back.
I know, yeah. I mean, good luck getting all those people back.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. You talked about streaming before. Netflix has had its fair share of cancelled too soon dramas. Can you talk us through Mindhunter?
Oh, I'd rather not, because this one is really personal to me. I loved this show. This was one of the great Netflix shows. Like, it's from David Fincher, an amazing director, such a good concept. It took us inside the real Mindhunter program, which is like the FBI profiling program they use to track serial killers. And David Fincher gave us 2 seasons of, like, near perfect TV, and then unfortunately it just disappeared. Now, it's kind of up for debate as to what happened. David Fincher, he's a really meticulous writer and creator, and I think basically Netflix were like, he's taking too long, and we have other stuff to do, and I think maybe the viewing numbers didn't quite match up with the effort. But that being said, fans have been waiting for news on this, and just last week, Holt McCalley, he's one of the stars of the show, he's currently promoting his new series The Waterfront. He said that David Fincher has been back in the writing room, and that a Mindhunter 3rd season is, like, inevitable.
Okay.
So if you are waiting on that, then look, it may be a possibility, but if not, go back and watch the show, because it's just it's such a great piece of TV.
Rewatchable, that's for sure.
Correct.
What about the OA? Because my eldest daughter has got me into this one.
Yes.
But there's only 2 seasons.
I know, it's another one. It's a real sci-fi thing. It seems to happen a lot with sci-fi series. This was such a big hit for Netflix initially, and then it kind of petered off, but, like, they gave this 2 seasons and then, kind of called it a day. It was so devastating for fans that they managed to petition Netflix to kind of do, like, a 2-part movie at the end to wrap it up. But again, in terms of updates, so Jason Isaacs, who we love from The White Lotus, he was in this show. He just last week said he met with the creator, Britt Marling, who's also the star of the show, and they are definitely bringing it back.
Yes.
So she's working on scripts, and I think, especially with someone like Jason on board, that show will, no doubt come back. So I reckon, you and your daughter are in luck.
See,
Season 3.
is anything ever really cancelled?
That's right, yeah, exactly.
Okay, the Netflix series, is it Sense8?
Sense8, yeah.
Yeah, so that inspired an unprecedented fan campaign that actually got a finale movie as well. So how often does this happen?
I mean, look, that is kind of rare. This show was a really good concept, but it was shot all over the world. So I kind of see, like, this, I think the production costs were enormous for this, and maybe the return wasn't there. But yeah, like, we've seen lots of shows get that kind of, like, fan movement, and even with Arrested Development and Twin Peaks, they kind of got these, at least, closure episodes. But yeah, Sense8, I think lots of fans are still mourning that. But I suspect that we will not see any more Sense8 on our screens. But look, at least, Belinda, the OA will be back.
Well, you're bringing us some good news and bad news this morning,
Exactly.
but some hope is there.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks,
Great
Thomas.
to see you.